Time for another vlog. This is Thai vlog 10 and March 13th to the 20th. Start off with sport. Well, we saw the last of the quarterfinals. Sorry, the last of the last 16 matches that decided the quarterfinals in the Champions League, and it saw the end of the day, the end of the run for Manchester United, who lost at home 2-1 to Sevilla. Big backlash to that, and I'll touch on that in a minute. And Chelsea predictably went out 2-0 at the Nou Camp to Barcelona. So basically, United's Mourinho was in the press conference a couple of days later trying to put the record straight about how United under him have progressed significantly in comparison to the time between Ferguson and him, the time when Moyes and Van Gaal were in charge. And he's absolutely correct. The only problem is that Manchester United fans and the view of the media is such that second isn't good enough. And although I have considerable sympathy with Mourinho, he knows that second is not good enough at this club. And so although he can take away from this season a second in the Premier League and a possible final in the FA Cup, he will have to do better. And it's no good him talking about legacy or heritage, I think it was, for hour after hour, because that won't cut the mustard. Okay, talking of the FA Cup, a few days later, United disposed of Brighton comfortably, I might add, although they didn't play particularly well, and Mourinho pointed that out. But they won 2-0, and they joined Chelsea, Spurs and Southampton, who've got a new coach, Mark Hughes. That should be interesting. Okay, so that's the football wrap up. Indian Wells, the tennis, we saw an amazing highlights reel of the final between Federer and Del Potro, and Del Potro won in a tie-break third set. Unfortunately, the brief highlights weren't good enough for me. Djokovic got knocked out early on, and so his return to form is still awaiting us. Finally, on sport, the rugby league from Australia, I'm a big fan of this, as some of you will know, and although the coverage on live stream isn't particularly good, we had round 2, and at the end of it all, there remains 5 teams with 2 wins out of 2. And there are a few surprises. The Knights, who have won the wooden spoon for the last 3 years, the Warriors from New Zealand, who have always blown hot and cold, the West Tigers, who were also down the bottom last year, are joined by the Panthers and the St. George Illawarra Dragons. I like them. They've made a couple of signings, and their English number 6, Gareth Withop, is looking a star act, and he has certainly put them in a strong position. Right, now let's move on to media. As you know, in this vlog, I'm going to look at media, what I've watched, what I thought about it. This gives you a sort of look in to my life You may think, well, there's a severe lack of people. Well, you come to Thailand and try and mix in with the locals and you'll understand why. So, media. Well, I saw the movie Shine, 1996, Scott Hicks, an Australian director, and it starred an Australian, Geoffrey Rush, as a composer, pianist, and it was a tale basically of how he grew up in an oppressive atmosphere with an obsessive father who was absolutely determined that he should be the greatest pianist in the world. After suffering this throughout his childhood and into his early adulthood, he ended up in a psychiatric institution, and it took him 15 years to get out. It's quite an interesting film. Rush won the Oscar for this. However, he's only in it for about 40% of the time. And I've got a review coming on that, a movie. I also saw a New Zealand film called The Changeover. It was quite an interesting movie about sort of possession and the occult, and basically it starred Timothy Spall. You may remember him from his appearances in Alvida's Empire and also in a number of movies including Secrets and Lies. Well, he's a real weird sort of guy in this movie. He is intent on taking possession of young children's souls, and he does this in this movie, and it's worth a watch. Tailed off towards the end. Another movie that I watched was Bad Country. This is set in Louisiana, and it's about a hitman who actually turned state witness after the guys that he worked for, the mafia, decided to obliterate his family. Strong cast. Matt Dillon plays the informant. William Dafoe is the police officer, and Tom Berenger is the mafia king. Yeah, okay, good stuff. Fine.